Welcome to War Bios, the podcast where we delve into the most pivotal battles in history, examining the strategic context, operational art, and human cost of conflict. I'm your host, General Biography, and today we're going to explore one of the most decisive battles in medieval history, the Battle of Hastings, fought on October 14, 1006. This clash of arms would change the course of English history, shaping the fate of a nation and leaving an indelible mark on the landscape of warfare. The death of King Edward the Confessor on January 5, 1066, sparked a succession crisis in England, with multiple claimants vying for the throne. Harold Godwinson, the powerful Earl of Wessex, was crowned king by the English nobles, but his claim was soon contested by William, Duke of Normandy, who argued that Edward had promised the throne to him. The historical context of this period is crucial in understanding the events that led to the Battle of Hastings. The Norman Conquest was not just a simple matter of one army defeating another. It was a complex web of politics, alliances, and cultural clashes. The Normans, with their feudal system and chivalric code, were a distinct culture from the English, who had developed a unique blend of Anglo-Saxon and Viking traditions. In the months leading up to the battle, Harold Godwinson faced numerous challenges as he sought to consolidate his power. He had to contend with the threat of invasion from Norway, led by King Harald Hardrada, who claimed the English throne based on a treaty between Norway and England. On September 25, 1066, Harold's army defeated the Norwegian invaders at the Battle of Stamford Bridge near York. However, this victory came at a great cost, as many of Harold's best soldiers were killed or wounded in the battle. As Harold marched his army south to confront the Norman forces, he was aware that William had been gathering troops and supplies in Normandy for months. The Norman army, led by William, consisted of heavily armored knights, archers, and infantry who were well-trained and well-equipped for battle. In contrast, the English army, led by Harold, relied on their traditional shield wall tactic, which had served them well against the Norwegian invaders. The location of the battle is also worthy of note. Hastings, a small town in southeastern England, was a strategic location, situated near the coast and close to the main road from London to Dover. The surrounding countryside, with its rolling hills and dense forests, would provide a challenging terrain for both armies to navigate. The battlefield itself, located near the present-day town of Battle, East Sussex, was a large open area, surrounded by woods and hills, which would play a significant role in the events that unfolded. As we explore the earliest history of the Battle of Hastings, we must consider the key figures involved in its development. Harold Godwinson, the King of England, was a powerful and experienced leader, but his claim to the throne was tenuous at best. William, Duke of Normandy, on the other hand, was a skilled military commander with a strong sense of ambition and a solid claim to the English throne. Other notable figures played important roles in the events leading up to the battle. Edward the Confessor's wife, Edith, and her brother, Tustig Godwinson, who had been displaced as Earl of Northumbria by Harold, were among those who supported William's claim to the throne. The English nobles, including the powerful Earls of Mercia and Northumbria, also played a crucial role in the events leading up to the battle. The fate of England hung in the balance, as two powerful armies prepared to collide on the blood-soaked fields of Hastings. As the two armies faced off on the battlefield, the English army, led by King Harold Godwinson, formed a traditional shield wall with their housecarls or heavy infantry at the front. The Norman army, led by William, Duke of Normandy, employed a more complex tactic, using a combination of archers, crossbowmen, and cavalry to weaken the English lines before launching a full-scale attack. The battle began with a series of skirmishes between the two armies, as the Norman archers and crossbowmen attempted to soften up the English shield wall. The English, however, held firm, using their shields to deflect the arrows and bolts. The Normans then launched a series of cavalry charges, but these were repelled by the English infantry, who used their long spears and axes to devastating effect. Despite being outnumbered, the English army fought valiantly, holding off the Norman attacks for several hours. However, as the day wore on, the English lines began to weaken, and the Normans started to gain the upper hand. The turning point of the battle came when the Norman cavalry managed to outflank the English army, attacking them from the rear and causing widespread panic. As the English army began to falter, King Harold Godwinson was killed, reportedly by an arrow to the eye. The English army, leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat, pursued by the Norman cavalry. The battle was all but over, with the Normans emerging victorious. The aftermath of the battle was brutal, with many English soldiers slaughtered as they attempted to flee. The Norman army, however, suffered significant losses as well, with estimates suggesting that up to 4,000 Norman soldiers were killed or wounded. The battle marked a decisive turning point in English history, as William, Duke of Normandy, was crowned King William I of England, beginning a new era of Norman rule. The Battle of Hastings also had significant cultural and social implications, as the Norman Conquest introduced feudalism, chivalry, and French culture to England. The battle marked the end of the Anglo-Saxon era, and the beginning of a new period of English history, one that would be shaped by the Norman legacy. The Norman Conquest, which began with William's victory on October 14, 1066, marked a significant turning point in English history, introducing feudalism, chivalry, and French culture to the island. In the years following the battle, William I, also known as William the Conqueror, worked to consolidate his power and establish a new Norman ruling class. He replaced many of the Anglo-Saxon nobles with Normans, granting them land and titles in exchange for their loyalty. This led to a significant shift in the balance of power in England, as the Normans became the dominant force in politics, economy, and culture. The Norman Conquest also had a profound impact on the English language. French became the language of the ruling class, and it would remain so for centuries, influencing the development of Middle English. Many French words entered the English vocabulary, especially in fields such as law, government, and cuisine. The English language, which had previously been heavily influenced by Germanic languages, began to take on a more Romance character, reflecting the cultural exchange between England and Normandy. The Norman Conquest also shaped English architecture, as the Normans introduced their own style of building, characterized by the use of stone, arches, and vaults. The construction of castles, such as the Tower of London, became a symbol of Norman power and authority, while the building of churches and monasteries reflected the growing influence of Christianity in England. The impact of the Norman Conquest on English identity and national consciousness was also significant. The Anglo-Saxon era, with its distinct culture and traditions, came to an end, replaced by a new Norman-dominated culture that would shape English identity for centuries to come. The concept of Englishness, which had previously been closely tied to Anglo-Saxon culture, began to take on a new meaning, reflecting the cultural exchange between England and Normandy. The Norman Conquest introduced new ideas, institutions, and cultural practices that would shape the course of English history, influencing everything from language and architecture to politics and national identity. The legacy of the Battle of Hastings can still be seen today, in the many castles, churches, and monuments that dot the English landscape. It can be heard in the English language, which retains many French loanwords, and it can be felt in the ongoing cultural exchange between England and France. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.